told Carolyn that I'm not a Chinese specialist, I'm a performance scholar, and so I'm approaching it from the performance studies angle. And so I'll start with by decoding the jargons. Okay. First, multicentric. This adjective multicentric in my title comes from the concept of multicentricity, which I explored as an analytical angle in my first book, in Los Angeles' Multicentric Performance Art. Basically, I was inspired by the centrifugal urban geography of Los Angeles. So I theorized multicentricity, that's multiple centers, along three postulates. I take center both literally as a converging point and metaphorically as a sentient unit. So every one of us is a center. And so the first postulate is that the inevitability of perceptual centricity. The second is the coexistence of multiple and multi-scale centers. The third is the fundamental inadequacy of any one center. And so the first postulate references the condition of human perception. The second delineates phenomenon of terrestrial and cosmic existence, that we're living in a multicentric world. And the third reveals the perceptual, cognitive, and experiential limits of any finite being among multitude. So to be aware of multicentricity as an epistemic condition is simultaneously to exercise one's critical positions and remain self-critical about its suppositions. So I believe multicentricity elucidates the conceptual basis of performance art, because performance art thrives on the tacit contract and mnemonic coagencies between the artist as a singular center and the on-site or remote viewers as multiple centers. Although they have different relationship with the displayed artwork, the artist's understanding about the work cannot supersede those of the viewers. Rather, the artist and the viewers complement one another to locate and perpetuate the cultural efficacy of an expired piece of art in contemporary art history. So it's kind of like a conspiracy theory. And I cannot go into further details about this concept, but I can explain how I use it in my title. I'm going to discuss numerous Chinese performance installation artworks under a series of themes. These themes are multicentric in the sense that they are both unique and interrelated. As coexisting entities, these themes mutually influence each other, even though their respective relevance to culture at large fluctuates like changing fashions. Together, these themes map out some of the country's evolving cultural preoccupations seen through a certain marginal centers of Chinese contemporary art. Okay. The second is time-based art. I use the term time-based art to subsume the two genres of my interest. That's Xingwei Yishu, a Chinese translation of performance art, and Xingwei Zhuangzhi, performance installation or performative installation. They're slightly different. Xingwei Yishu supplies a malleable vessel for an artist to embody, endure, propose, and demonstrate alternative modes of behavior. Xingwei Zhuangzhi constructs an unfamiliar site to expose, evoke, and at times conceal such behaviors in a durational interface with the viewing public. Both genres are time-based in that they engage with the nature and attributes of temporality by incorporating changeable substances as the subject, object, or material of art. In Xingwei Yishu, the changeable element is often the artist's body. In Xingwei Zhuangzhi, its installation routinely features perishable materials or ephemeral art actions to heighten its temporary dimension. So in response to China's rapid transformation, time-based art, I suggest, serves to underscore the Chinese experiences with transience, mutability, commercialization, and virtuosic adaptability that characterize the country's emerging ethos. And the third point is Chinese. Okay. As contemporary Chinese art becomes integrated into the global art market and exhibition systems, the adjective Chinese also becomes an open question. Is being Chinese a geographical, political, cultural, or linguistic marker? I read that Angelina was talking about that. Is it a signifier for certain discernible aesthetic characteristics, Or is it only a convenient label for words created by artists who self-identify as Chinese? These questions come from most of the artists I study, especially when they participate in exhibitions abroad and experience firsthand the mechanism of the world art system, including from our title here. I will not attempt to answer these questions here, other than to say that I've restricted myself to sampling cultural productions from a single Chinese city, Beijing. While symposium's theme explicitly addresses Hong Kong as the new cultural city, Beijing is the implied cultural city of my address. So I'm not talking about Chinese art, I'm actually talking about art made in Beijing. I will revisit actually an earlier moment about Xingwei Yishu to talk about its emergence in China. Time-based art emerged in China during the 1980s, and amid an onrush of Western ideas, theories, literature, and aesthetic expressions that washed over China's post-revolutionary intellectual landscape. This temporal art form's early identity was mostly intertwined with that of Xingwei Yishu, which first appeared in the mid-1980s as isolated guerrilla events happening just under the official radar. Concept 21, Art Before Your Eyes, took place 23rd of December 1989, for example, took place on the campus of Beijing University. In -8 Celsius degrees, that's 17.6 Fahrenheit, a group of artists undressed, wrapped their bodies with white linens, poured various colored paints on each other, and then engaged in simultaneous random actions. Some rode bicycles, while others climbed on the roof to call out names of iconographic sites, such as the Great Wall and Yangtze River. Subsequently, these artists moved to the actual Great Wall as a performance site. This piece is called Concept 21, Taiji, 1988. The participants they wound white bandages around their bodies and bound themselves together in a spider web made of black fabric strips. And in the middle of the web, Sheng Qi labors through continuous Taiji moves. That's the performance. The Concept 21 performances present the visual themes of body binding, of simultaneous and collective actions, and of human interactions with a historically significant site. These visual themes, especially the last one, that's to interaction with a historically significant site, will recur throughout Xingwei Yishu's history. So will the Great Wall continue to attract similar types of happenings. And right now, the Great Wall has actually become a fashion stage. Okay. During the 1980s, in a decade enlivened by what the literary critic Wang Jing calls the high cultural fever, most of these semi-clandestine ephemeral events happened without official intervention. Yet, by the end of the decade, Xingwei Yishu became notoriously linked with risky and provocative behaviors through a major art exhibition. That's the China Modern Art Exhibition, also called the China Avant-Garde. That's 1989. This large exhibition, which opened on 5th of February 1989, the China Art Gallery in Beijing, hosted several amusingly irreverent performance works, including Li Shan's washing feet, feet washing, Zhang Nian's hatching eggs, and Wu Shanzhuang's Big Business, in which the artist sold shrimps to the museum visitors. Okay. But the most explosive event was an installation piece entitled Dialogue, which in an instant transformed into a Xingwei Zhuangzhi. The artist Xiao Lu constructed 2 telephone booths, with the back of a man and a woman inside the 2 booths, appearing to be making phone calls. In between the booths was a stand with an unhooked telephone and an elongated mirror. Shortly after the opening, Xiao fired a pistol shot toward her own installation after her partner Tang Song yelled, "Kai Qiang, shoot." So Xiao fled after the event, but Tang was arrested and the exhibition was immediately closed. Xiao later turned herself in, and thanks to their family backgrounds, the 2 artists stayed in jail for only 3 days. The China Avant-Garde show then reopened briefly twice, but was completely canceled on 17th of February 1989. After the final closure of the China Avant-Garde exhibition, many of the participating artists attended a talk by Wei Jingsheng, and they signed a petition drawn up by Wei to promote a democratic China. This incident anticipated the Tiananmen demonstration organized by college students with the support of many experimental artists. After the Chinese government's June 4th military crackdown on the Tiananmen demonstration, the term avant-garde acquired seditious overtone in the early 1990s, only in the early 1990s. Many leading contemporary artists left China, while the country's experimental art scene fell into guarded stasis for the next 3 years. Now I'm talking about Gongchen. In 1992, a group of young artists gradually gathered around a dilapidated area near the fringe of Beijing and named their place East Village, which became the hotbed for many body art performances until the area was demolished by the government in 1994. The first Xingwei stage in East Village was Ma Liuming's dialogue with Gilbert and George, inspired by the artist's encounter with the British performance art duo, Gilbert and George. Gilbert and George had toured the world performing their singing sculptures, and they came to Beijing for their solo exhibition in the winter of 1993. Ma attended the exhibition, and he spontaneously joined Gilbert and George to become a non-vocal component of their singing sculptures. Afterwards, Ma invited the two artists to visit his painting studios in East Village and performed dialogue with Gilbert and George as a cultural exchange. Ma's performance consisted of a simple ritualistic sequence of getting some hidden bag of red paint to drip from the ceiling down to his bare upper torso. Okay. So although dialogue with Gilbert and George does not contribute any novel concept or language to a lexicon of time-based art, I consider the work significant because it epitomizes the initial relationship between performance art and Xingwei Yishu. As a Xingwei artist, Ma openly admitted his debt to Gilbert and George's performance art, which served as a life model for an established international visual art medium with at least a 3-decade history. The double historical themes of intercultural encounters and largely unilateral information transmission from the foreign world to China, as seen in Ma's process of creating dialogue with Gilbert and George, will continue to shape time-based artworks produced in Beijing during the 1990s. And right now, this situation has changed, but we're tracing an earlier moment. Dialogue with Gilbert and George was the floodgate that released a torrent of Xingwei activities in East Village. Ma came to his own as a Xingwei artist by creating a performance alter ego, Fen Ma Liuming, who, with a face wearing makeup and apparently male body, engaged in a series of naked performances in East Village and beyond. This one is Fen Ma Liuming's Lunch 1, Fen Ma Liuming's Lunch 2, Fen Ma Liuming and the Fish, okay, Fish Child, Fen Ma Liuming Walking the Great Wall. Many other radical performances happened concurrently in East Village. The most well-known of these quasi-private Xingwei pieces included Zhang Huan's endurance body art pieces, 12 square meters, 65 kilograms, 25 millimeter threading steel, and original sound. Zhu Ming's bubble performances, 1994, April 30th, 1994, December 27, 1996, October 28th. Okay, Cang Xin's serial actions in the virus series, Self-Cure, 1994, and Trampling on Faces, and the Communications series. During the performance of Fen Ma Liuming's Lunch 2, the police arrested Ma and other artists were assisting his performance. Ma's subsequent highly publicized 2 months imprisonment, exacerbated by flyaway rumors about extreme performances in East Village, added to Xingwei Yishu's roguish mystique. Unlike Xingwei Yishu in the previous decade, okay, the East Village performances were mostly individual rather than collective artworks. In fact, one of the rare collaborative Xingwei pieces by East Village artists was enacted after the place no longer existed. This piece, To Add 1 Meter to an Anonymous Mountain, 1995, enacted to commemorate the artistic camaraderie in East Village. To Add 1 Meter to an Anonymous Mountain, ironically, produced an intense conflict among the 10 participating artists in subsequent authorship disputes. Many of the artists I interviewed in Beijing, they suggested that this conflict turned them against pursuing collective work any further. And this conflict surrounding a particular live artwork was mirrored by other conflicts regarding the authorship rights to the photographs documenting a given Xingwei artwork. Should the photographs belong to the artist performing the piece or to the photographer creating the images? These arguments were debates about creative ownerships and copyrights, which were explicitly about money. The fact that these conflicts occurred reflects the inadequacy of a communist legal system ill-equipped to deal with the emerging social problems regarding personal property. For China in the 1990s was very much defined by Deng Xiaoping's renewed economic reform policy, instituted after Deng's 1992 Southern Tour, so tour of the Pearl River Delta. It was a decade that experienced the increasing impacts of commercialization and globalization, aggravated by the post-Tiananmen retreat of the intellectual elites from public lives. The erstwhile collective utopianism became suspect, yet no new solution was forthcoming from Deng's political directives of socialism with Chinese characteristics. Yet, however compromised by individual rivalry and the mechanism of transnational commerce, idealism and dedication remain driving forces for practitioners within the microcosm of Xingwei. From the works of the 4 pioneering Xingwei artists, we see 2 major methodological types. Ma Liuming and Cang Xin center on the concept of the artist's self, whereas Zhang Huan and Zhu Ming explore their ability and determination as artists to fulfill pre-scored tasks. Ma both alters and exposes his self as a bodily image, a distinct surface without the burden of psychological interiority. The word fen in Fen Ma Liu Ming means fragrance, which is usually a name given to a female, but the noun is also homonymic with the verb fen, which means to divide. So Ma creates the role of Fen Ma Liu Ming by adorning his face to exaggerate its androgynous distinctiveness, and by graphically setting the made-up face apart from its original male body. During performance, Fen Ma Liu Ming always stays passive and mute, as a wordless, immobile, and embodied image. Cang engages with his self through a dual process of reconstruction and deconstruction. From his virus series, Cang cast 1,500 plaster masks out of his own face, and he marking each mask with the time of its production. He then paved those masks on the ground in a grid formation, and then either crushed the mask with his own body weight or asked the spectators to trample on them. That earlier image of the trampling of the bases. This action sequence suggests that Cang first condenses his self-identity within a very similar face, the plaster mask, and then he exerts external pressures to destroy that self. His laborious act of duplicating his facial images serves to facilitate their destructions. So Cang reclaimed himself precisely by willing to undergo the symbolic disintegration of his calcified personal boundary. He's a shaman, he practices shamanism, so the whole point is to destroy the self in order to transmute into other beings. For Zhang Huan and Zhu Ming, their artist bodies contribute to the overall visual imagery created by their Xingwei actions, but their action scores seem to have little to do with the distinctive image and identity of their selves. Zhang, he calls attention to his own materialistic approach by naming his pieces with factual physical characteristics. 12 square meters refer to the size of the public toilet, within which his body, coated half with honey and half with fish oil, endure 1 hour's cohabitation with flies, heat, and stench. 65 kg happened to be his body weight when he performed the action of hanging himself with iron chains horizontally upside down from the ceiling and letting his blood drip from his vein to the heating pan on the ground. Although Zhang's action involves self-harm and masochistic resolution, it is conceivable for another person to perform his Xingwei scores without distorting their concepts. The same argument applies to Zhu Ming's Xingwei artworks. Aspiring to the role of a scientist, Zhu chose to interact with a particular substance so as to exhaust its performative possibilities. His first investigation target was the soap bubbles and their connection with breath. This is the second series of investigation with a bigger bubble. He would repeat the act of blowing bubbles, but vary the circumstances in which he performed the act so as to understand how his experiences change. Through both its duration and its experiential intensity, Zhu's bubble blowing act transformed from ordinary child's play into a conscious artistic behavior. From this aspect, we can challenge my earlier assumption that Zhang and Zhu's Xingwei Yishu recalls the conceptual fluxus scores, which may be done by any enterprising viewers at home. Endurance, which is a ceaseless process of sensing how one's body negotiates an onerous task through extended time, individualizes each Xingwei artwork for Zhang and for Zhu. While others may perform the acts, others cannot experience the act for the artists. From these four artists' earlier projects, we can summarize several themes that will surface again and again with variations throughout Xingwei Yishu's history. The first one is questions about the self as an existential, social, historical, political, and artistic subject. The second one is exercising homeopathic absorption of violence on the flesh. The third one, demonstrating how the body changes through time and space to expose mortality as a constant condition of being. And number four, inquiry into the nature and process of creating and documenting live images. And so, because of my time limit, I'll do a quick sweep through a variety of Xingwei and Xingwei Zhuangzi pieces in my next section from an archive of images. And these images are organized roughly under these four themes, but I will add one more additional themes that's provoked by China's rampant commercialism in the next decade. Okay, so as I said, once my time is up, just tell me. Let me just registry. And these are the five themes: self-subjectivity, visualizing and actualizing violence, temporality, sexuality, mortality, documenting time-based art, and critique of commodity materialism. Okay. In this first theme, we are these variables, various themes, excavating traditions. Okay, we'll come back to that. This is Qiu Zhijie's repeatedly copying 1,000 times Nan Ting Xu, 1990 to 1997. I'm not going to go into details. I know these works, so if there's any image that intrigues you and you don't know what's going on here, just let me know. I can explain further. Okay, so I can go on. Song Dong's water diary, using water and the brush to write on this stone that he just picked up from a mountain, until he died. Then his will ask his relatives and family to return this stone to the mountain. Okay. Here is Yu Ji is playing the Chinese lute toward water. Then, and let's see. This is we are moving to the second theme: Stoic taskmasters, proposals for individual ethics. This is He Yunchang's advanced appointment with tomorrow. He did this for hours. That he just had mud on his body and he kept making calls, but these calls are from unhooked. The telephone is not hooked up. Next one, He Yunchang's Golden Sunshine. He did it in the prison wall. Okay, dialogue with water. He used the knife to cut through the water and wire the blood dripping down from his arms. This is a gunman. He just tied himself up in chains and asking this fire engine to pour water on his body for hours. This is Yang Tianshan, and he went and found this site that's a remote site in Xinjiang, and this is fire powder, and in front of the concrete is actually xuanzi, a lot of paper, Chinese papers. Okay, purified water, and this is actually one of his more satisfying pieces. And he told me that basically he's using his body weight to counter the water, and the water, when the water leaks, and his body just gradually fall to the ground, and when his body hit the ground, that's when the piece ends. Okay, this one is he just completed for 3 months. He has to walk 30 miles a day, and this is picking up a stone, just like Song Dong, picking up a stone somewhere randomly. And Song Dong used his his brush and start associating with the stone. And here is He Ying-chang. He's using this rock and just walk toward the whole Great Britain. Okay, here's Yang Zhichao's planting. He always he did this without anesthesia. He said that what's the point? The point is to endure the pain. Okay, and here's another variation of the theme, self and subjectivity. This is navigating the social body. Zhu Fadong's person wanted act, and this is actually in Kunming, so not really in Beijing, but he specifies he got lost in Beijing Road. Here's Beijing. He has these posters of this person's for sale, price negotiable. That's 1994. This is Yang Zhichao. He did it when he wanted to practice art, but didn't know what to do because he had a baby. He has to take care of his own baby, and so he turned that first year of babysitting into his art. And he's also like, on the back it says professional manual. Here's Yin Shouzhen's Washing the River. It's in Sichuan. Yin Shouzhen is a Beijing-based installation artist. As I said, I will go through these images, and if you want to ask me about the piece, please do. Okay, Cang Xin, the communication series, landscapes. He started doing this using his tongue piece. I think it's a very familiar pieces. So. Format, so it takes a while. This is Identity Exchange series. He just moved toward different environment, different surroundings. And this piece is actually his first piece. He started doing identity exchange. He went to find a chef and change his clothes with the chef. But then he found this Sanpei Xiaojie, in just at the same size, so he did it spontaneously. Okay. He Chengyao opened the Great Wall. Was actually just talking about this one, but she relayed her own performances to her mother, who was mad, who was crazy, and likes to expose her upper body. Okay, He Chengyao 99 Needles. This is again, it's thinking about her mother's life and returning her own body, almost imagining herself returning to the mother's body, because the mother was forced to have acupuncture to cure her madness during the Cultural Revolution. Okay, He Chenyao's kids, she made these ice cubes, and yeah, I've been to relation. And this is Song Dong and Zhao Haizhen. Zhao Haizhen is Song Dong's mom, and Wei's not. These are all the accumulations of materials that Zhao Haizhen had, and she fell into a depression after her husband passed away, and so Song Dong created this project together with his mom in order to catalog her life and her possessions. Ai Weiwei, Richard was just talking about him. This is actually, I was very impressed with this project, Fairy Tale. He Ying-chang and Ai Weiwei, they are very close together. And He Ying-chang, that's the guy who did all sorts of the Chinese Chris Burden, right? And so he likes to call his project as making fairy tales for the adults, adult fairy tale. And so here is Ai Weiwei talking about his project as fairy tale and taking 1001 Chinese Picasso. Okay, this is moving to another variation of the theme, politicized rituals in printing the sense. Wang Chuyu's white traces, again body bonding. Wang Zhu is reading. The book is on the Chinese Constitution. I think he did that in Hong Kong also. Yeah. Passionate celebration. This is SARS story, and that's the manuscript for Chinese Health Institute. Wang Zhu used to speak English. He just used his finger and write on the ground until there's a trace of blood on the ground, speak English. Song Dong's breathing. The first one is, of course, the famous image of Tiananmen Square, and the second one is on Icy Lake. Zhang Dali's demolition. Yang Zhichao's branding the ID because of the sticky. Okay, and the sixth variation, seeking humanity's animality, Wang Jin's to marry a mule. Xu Bing's cultural animals. Xiao Yu run, he is creating new creatures using baby's head and pigeons and the mouse tails. Okay, Cangxin the Bats series. The bugs on top of Cangxin's body is actually mianbao cong, so it's a delicatessen for the Beijing Ren. And so here is he's covered with those bugs. This is my son's favorite performance art piece. Wu Gaozhong, born on May 28th. He didn't slaughter the cow. He loaned the cow from a butcher's shop. Okay, and this is a fun piece. I actually, when I was presenting on this, I got attacked by in London because of the torture of animals. This is dogs that cannot touch each other. They're pit balls and they're covered in paper. And once the paper was lifted, but every round of competition is 7 minutes. And these dogs were raised to fight to death, usually. Yeah. This is also the safety harbor. They built the whole cage surrounding the whole museum. So all the audience members, they cannot get into the museum to see other exhibitions unless they pass through the cage. But how they can pass through the cage depending on the tiger's motion. You know, there are only 2 doors. Okay, 10,000 years. Can you tell the creature, the person on top? He's the person who was born with the hair. I think Joy actually knows. Okay, so I'm moving down to visualizing, actualizing violence. This is Zhang Shengquan, Deliverance Passage. This is done in Tibet. And his point was to move move that lamb to the other shore and then sacrifice it, but was stopped. The action was stopped by Song Dong. Okay. Wang Zhu's Pigeon Banquet. This was also stopped by some artists, but it was carried through. He Yunchang's emergency exit. He's using a pigeon, using his own body and protected with concrete to protect the pigeon. Liu Jin's a big vat of soy sauce. The pig didn't die. The pig was fainted because of the heat of the soy sauce. And it was revived. Okay, this one is soul killing. They got this from a food store. Okay, and so this dog was frozen in its original posture, and they're using the light to create smoke from that. Soul killing. Xiao Yu's Jew is another creation of new animals, but what he did was that he put live mice together, sew them together through a tube in a pair. Okay? And here's the mice beak. Okay. Zhu Yu's transplantation, he transplanted one part of his skin onto this pork. Okay, Wang Wei is trapped. This is he's actually recreated this from the bird cage. Is it time?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We're so interested to watch them, so I don't want to shut it down, but we're getting close to time.
Okay, yeah. So,
So, okay.
Should I stop?